If you look at the anatomy of a tree, you can break down the life that it's lived. A trunk that reveals its age and the strength that it holds. A crown of leaves that shade and protect life under and on the tree. Life that is lived on its branches and seeks shelter under its foliage. Trees are beacons of nature, strongholds for life, sanctuaries for creatures to gather. But as above, so below. The larger the tree, the deeper the roots.
Tabernacle then was more conservative, traditional as far as, some people used to call us the bougie church because we didn't shout, we didn't do those things. But of course, through the years, things revolved. Sometimes we would have members that would, shout or howl out or whatever. That was during the time of Reverend Moss, and the pastor that I grew up under and remember the most is Reverend Hamilton. To us, he was tall. We were little kids. He was tall, but he loved kids. He loved the youth. He was just a people person that loved everybody. He had this drive that, things could be better. And I call him the shaker and the maker. I can say that about all our pastors pretty much. They had visions, they had dreams. C.T. Walker had a vision. All the pastors had a vision.
Tabernacle has always been a beacon in our community. During the Civil Rights era, under the leadership of C.S. Hamilton.
His genius was that he brought all these different people together from different walks of life at different stages of their life. And so paying college students, they were not out there on a limb just kind of going at it, trying to desegregate buses and desegregate lunch counters. They had the umbrella of the NAACP helping them, and Reverend Hamilton was at the head of that.
He wasn't a person to stay. You got to move. You got to be the shaker and the maker. You got to make that change for the better. And he was about that. He was about making changes.
And even further back, during the latter years of slavery by our founders, C.T. Walker.
The ministry of C.T. Walker. I've always found it fascinating that this young man of humble beginnings, born enslaved near what we today call Hepzibah, Georgia, owned by another individual, would one day rise to become arguably the greatest minister of the United States during that time period.
The roots of Tabernacle Baptist Church run deep in the foundation on the corner of Laney Walker Boulevard and C.S. Hamilton Way. Cornerstones that were laid with the help of Dr. George N. Stoney on March 14th, 1914. A cornerstone that sunlight touches every day to help illuminate the towering tree that is Tabernacle for all to gather in.
A church 136 years to be able to pivot and shift and morph like we are and still be able to be creative and reimagine, is interesting. This is the year of expansion, and God has really expanded us. Initially, when I got that vision from God, I really thought it was more sites and those things and adding Tab Global, but we're expanding in our mind. We're expanding our perspective. And then as we move into next year, which I believe is the year to dream again, we're going to really have to reimagine and really be creative.
As the tree continues to grow, so does our ministry.
Is first and foremost, this church is a historically Black church. And so we wanted to be around Black people. We wanted to be around our people, going through 2016 and through the Trump presidency and the Southern Baptist Convention, it's not the best place for us. And so we wanted to be, back around our folk. We wanted to feel what it was like to have expressive worship. We wanted to feel what it was like, to be immersed in the hoop and the kind of lived kind of religious experience of Black people.
2020 was a year to remember and has changed how we all have had to live our lives. We believe that because of our deep roots, we were able to keep moving forward.
I think the most challenging thing we've had to deal with is the distance. We've always streamed, but it was always a supplement to our in-person worship. To me, many people talk about our preaching and our worship, but I think what made Tabernacle special was our interaction and our fellowship. And church was family reunion every Sunday. That's been the hardest thing, is not being able to interact with people that you love. I always believe that preaching is a dialogue and not a monologue. and having to navigate a space where you're not getting real-time affirmation or real-time connection. So that's been the hardest part about the pivot. Even though our multimedia team and worship team, exec team, I think did a yeoman's job. I think we were able to do it at a very high level. There's still something missing because you just want to see people.
As we move forward in ministry and our roots are set deep in the foundation, Tabernacle is now a global church for those who wish to gather. So, what does our future look like?
Wow, what does the vision of Tabernacle look like? Well, I think, honestly, I really believe that the best days are ahead of us. As we continue to expand, whichever way the next normal is going to be. You know, I'll be honest with you, I have really no idea. God has been showing me some things, and I've been just really trying to make sure that I'm being faithful to the call. But I don't know how many services we'll have. I'm not sure how many campuses we have. I'm not even sure that extent. What I do know is that we're going to stay committed to the goal and vision of what I believe our founder put in our hearts 136 years ago. And that is to be a church of faithful believers who love God and love one another.
We thank you, Tab family, locally and globally, for staying with us during your travels to the mountaintops and even through falls into the valleys. No matter where you are, the monolithic tree that is Tabernacle will remain high for all who wish to come together. Happy birthday, and thank you once again for worshiping at the most impactful place on the planet, the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church, a local church making a global impact.